This is a video about nothing. No, seriously, it's a video about nothing. Turn it back on. You know they don't understand, right? You know you have to explain these things, right? Okay, so I've been reading this book, The Tao of Pooh. Each time I reread it, I find a new lesson. Inside the Tao of Pooh, there is a concept that gets brought up. Tao does not do, but nothing is done. It is often in life we are forced into positions that make us feel like we are not progressing, as if nothing is happening, when in most cases, that is the furthest thing from the truth. Hey, I am Kim Hayden, and today we are going to talk about the Tao of Pooh, and more specifically, Wu Wei. As always, this is a new channel, so the best thing you can do is like, comment, and subscribe. If you'd like to support me in other ways, I am a self-published author and a working musician. So my music and book will be linked down below. Let's get into today's episode. And as always, thank you for listening. The Tao of Pooh was written in 1982 by Benjamin Hoff. The book uses the well-known and loved characters of Winnie-the-Pooh to introduce and explain the basic principles of Taoism to a Western audience. As we travel through various tales of Pooh's adventures, we are introduced to these topics and ideas, such as the Uncarved Block, Wu Wei, and silly character connections like the busy Baxon. And overall, it's a fun story that's engaging and thought-provoking. I always seem to find myself rereading this book in moments when I'm looking for more clarity in my life. It always brings a new way of looking at the stories being told and a new understanding that I missed the last time. So I jump back in every time, always knowing that I will probably have missed something. Maybe not because I don't have good reading comprehension, but because some of the lessons aren't things that come up until you're ready for them to come up for you. Now that we have explained the Book of Tao, I'm going to move into the greater concept, Wu Wei. For some, Wu Wei is a very simplified concept. Do without doing. Tao does not do, but nothing is done. For others like myself, it isn't so straightforward. I must admit, when I first heard this, I took it as more of a notion of just exploring the way that life is approaching. But there are many other concepts endowed within this that allude to explaining the fullness of this concept. For me personally, I thought of it as in moments where you did not have all of the answers, do nothing and an answer would come to you, which isn't that far off from an explanation within Taoism itself. But in terms of Wu Wei, this is not necessarily what the intention behind it is. When Wu Wei is introduced, we are also introduced to the second understanding of Coddleston Pie. There is a song that Pooh sings, the Coddleston Pie song.
Coddleston, Coddleston, Coddleston Pie. A fly can't bird, but a bird can fly. Ask me a riddle, and I reply. Coddleston, Coddleston, Coddleston Pie.
At first, listening, you go, okay, it's a silly song about pie made by Winnie-the-Pooh. Wonderful. But upon further inspection, we are introduced to the understanding of what Coddleston Pie represents.
Pooh wants us to know that the words Coddleston Pie are a way of saying inner nature. So, by substituting that term for the last line in each verse of the song, we get, ask me a riddle and I reply, inner nature. Coddleston Pie sounds better, said Pooh.
From this, we are introduced to the concept of Su-chan, self-soothe. Things happen by themselves spontaneously. All of these concepts and constructs are supposed to be whittled together in order for you to better understand Wu Wei. Wu Wei's desire is for you to not combat your inner nature, but instead use it to guide you to elements that would otherwise be forgotten. Taoism does not use Wu Wei in a way that it is simply to be a passerby in circumstances of nature, but it is also to be proactive, to use your inner nature, whether that be positive or negative, because at some point we will find things that we do not like about ourselves. The goal of Wu Wei is to use those elements of your inner nature, your Coddleston pie, to navigate through life in the way that you would much more desire. If there is a negative trait within you, if you have a piece of your inner nature that you find negative, it's not so simple as to abashedly run through a wall in hopes that you will get rid of that inner nature. Instead, it is more pointed towards the idea of aiming that inner nature in a direction that is beneficial to you. For my own personal example, I have brought it up in a previous video where I talk about love. In there, I also speak about something that is an internalized fear for myself. It is what goes along with the idea of what I had fashioned in myself to be what goes hand in hand with being successful, with being famous. And it is the notion that on a typical scale, famous people are usually terrible people. I don't fully stand on the fact that like every famous person is a terrible person. I don't even stand on the fact that every successful person is a terrible person. But it did illuminate a fear within myself that cultivated a piece of my inner nature into believing that in order to remain a good person, staying away from fame would be optimal. There's kind of a hindrance inside of that. It's not a negative thing to want to remain a good person. It is, however, a negative thing to align the principles and ideals of success and fame with being a negative person, bad person. There was many ways to like sort this out. What is a bad person? How do you define a bad person? But in the instance of using Wu Wei, rather than fighting that inner nature, rather than telling that inner nature that it is wrong on all fronts, I find that it is better in using what Wu Wei is teaching you, what all of the principles inside of the Tao of Pooh instruct you on. It's better to understand that this is a piece of who you are. This is a piece of who I am. This is something that I will firmly stand on, even if it's very deeply hidden within the recesses of my own mind. This is a place where I will firmly stand on for a while. And there's nothing wrong with standing there. But in the instance of Wu Wei, in the instance of Taoism, in the instance of Coddleton Pie, using the inner nature, I aim it in a better direction. Instead of associating fame and success with these negative categories, I instead say that piece of my inner nature should remain, because it will always be there to prevent me from wanting to be lenient about the practice of being a bad person. At the same time, there is obviously a guiding principle in me, a piece of my inner nature that is fine with being famous, is fine with being seen, is fine with doing things for the sake of art. There are many pieces of my inner nature. To neglect any of them is wrong. So by allowing the piece of inner nature in me that believes these things about success and fame to be the one guiding principle, I am restricting. I am still doing something. But by allowing the pieces of me that are okay with being famous and doing all of the work that it takes to be famous and succeed and be in the places that I would like to be, by allowing all of those pieces to coexist. The guiding principle instead doesn't just solely become to be famous means to be a bad person. The guiding principle then becomes you can become famous and not be a bad person. You can be the example of what you were most afraid of. This all leads me to part 3, how I plan to do nothing. When I say nothing, I mean it in the sense of Taoism. The Tao does not do, but nothing is done. In the Tao of Pooh, there is a concept, the Uncarved Block. It is represented by Winnie-the-Pooh. We follow Pooh. He is the antithesis of Tao. And as we follow Pooh, we learn that the Uncarved Block does not do, but nothing is not done. Many scenarios come up in which Pooh is presented with a problem or an issue and he finds a way to solve it. But in each time that he finds a way to solve it, he is then asked after, how did you know what to do? And Pooh retorts, I just did what came natural. In being the uncarved block and being something that is not crafted for the means of this world, at times Pooh may seem a little aloof. He is pretty aloof, but it's pretty intentional. You don't see him overthinking a situation. You don't see him questioning a guiding principle. You just see him existing and not trying to force anything to be anything more than it is. There's an instance where they get lost in the woods and it's Pooh, Piglet, and Rabbit. Rabbit is yapping. He's a real old school yapper. Rabbit yaps until Pooh cannot wait any longer. Pooh suggests, Rabbit, since you have so many ideas, why don't you go wherever you think we should go to get out of the wood? And if you don't find us, then we will know you went the wrong way. Rabbit leads itself onward, continuing to yap. And then Pooh suggests, I'm hungry. Shall we leave, Piglet? And Piglet says, but we don't know how to get home. Pooh then retorts, yes, but now that Rabbit is not speaking so much, perhaps I will hear the way to go. You see, Taoism presents itself, especially in this book, as more of a mental quiet, a kind nothing within your head. Understanding that the notions of learning and understanding things is important. Knowledge is important, and precaution is important, and energy and activity are all important. But also acknowledging that too much noise, too much of one thing will, in all instances, hinder you and not allow you to continue forward. So I've started recently going to the gym twice a day. I had a sudden urge to do it. I'm making a video about it. But in all of the going to the gym and doing it twice a day, many people have just asked me where I got the discipline from or why I'm doing it in the first place. And most people are just impressed by the discipline involved in it. Because I'm not just working out twice a day, I'm also eating healthy and trying to remain on a pretty consistent diet, but I'm not being very strict about it because I am observing and have observed my own nature. One thing that I did know about myself is that I can always will myself to work out, but I cannot always will myself to stay so rigid on food practices. And that is okay. Both of those things are a piece of my inner nature. Both of those things help to build a Coddleston pie within me. Both of those things may conflict with each other at times, and that's totally okay. The goal of the workouts is to ensure in my own mind that I want to be in the gym more consistently and reminding myself of how much I like being in the gym consistently. The goal of the eating and allowing myself to have moments where I have hit eating hiccup is to remind myself that food is not a punishment and the food that I'm eating is not a punishment. Both things are helping to cultivate a sort of better understanding of myself. And inside of it, I'm not really doing a whole lot of anything. I'm just allowing my inner nature to guide me to do those things. I'm allowing myself to sort of just do them because they are already a part of who I am. That is already something that I have found within myself. And so, yeah, I think I just made this video to tell you that there's never nothing to write about. And that was really the initial point of making this video, is that there's never nothing to write about. Because when there's nothing to write about, that means that there's still something. And you can write about the most obscene and bland concept. But for you, it may be bland. And for other people, that may be the most interesting thing that they've seen in a while. And that is just because of how our lives are run. But I think it carried over into wanting to be more philosophical about the ideas and the concepts behind the Book of Tao, because I'm rereading it, or the Book of Pooh, because I'm rereading it, and I really wanted to encapsulate this deep understanding that I have found for myself about nothing, about the Uncarved Block, about Tao not doing, but nothing not being done, about not forcing yourself to do things, but instead allowing yourself to be better without the anguish, without the force, without an unruling drive, just simply allowing yourself to do that. As always, I am Kim Hayden. This is the channel. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you thought. If you've read the Book of Tao, the Tao of Pooh. If you've read the Tao of Pooh, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think about the Tao of Pooh. If you haven't read the Tao of Pooh and you're thinking about reading it, or you've just now been introduced to the book, you should definitely read it. I recommend it. And maybe you'll end up like me and you'll go back a few times. Maybe you're like at a point in your life where you're going to read it once and get everything you need to. I really like that there is a book out there that I just kind of want to return to so often. Like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys soon.